You're coming with us as a Christmas present. I'm Groot.
We can go ahead and get to the first portion of my stream, which is my review for the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. Now, for those of you who watch me on Double Toasted or watch Double Toasted, you probably already know my general thoughts on the special chat. But I want to get into like more details about it, just from my own perspective on the special. Kind of just maybe rolling the clocks back a little bit. Just my general thoughts on the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise and how the character's been featured in the MCU. To speak very honestly, chat. When the movie was announced way back when, God, what 2012, 2013 or something. I knew nothing about the Guardians of the Galaxy. I fancy myself, someone who is pretty knowledgeable about comic books, chat. Certainly Marvel and DC. But even I have to say, like, I've heard of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I know some of the members, I think. Like, there's a character named Rocket Raccoon, and, he fires guns, and there's a talking tree, I think, and he says, I am Groot, and that's all he says. I never really, checked out Guardians. I never really read the comics. I never watched how they were featured in some of the cartoons and things. I was just unfamiliar with them. And so I was like, I don't know about this. I'm not sure. James Gunn's like, well, I like some of James Gunn's stuff, but some stuff I don't. And so I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. And I saw the trailers. I'm like, oh, these look fun. The musical choices, like that's really, making people feel like, oh, that was the big connective tissue, I think, for that movie. The marketing for Guardians of the Galaxy was very good. People loved all those music along with all the sci-fi visual. People were like, oh, okay. They got in sync with it, right? And then the movie came out, and I love Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought it was great. Just like we never heard these characters before, like most people. And certainly mainstream audiences. And I thought James Gunn did such a great job. And I have any criticism of the first movie. It's just like the villain, Ronan. I think that's the name of the villain. Kind of a forgettable villain, in my opinion. But the entire team, Star-Lord and Rocket and Gamora and Drax and Groot, I thought they were great. I really, really loved it. I just loved the visual. I love that, Marvel's finally getting weird and dipping their toes in different genres. And that came out the same year, 2014. That was Captain America Winter Soldier. That was a good year for Marvel. The Winter Soldier, which dipped his toes in the spy genre. I was like, this is exciting. It's cool. And so I was like, wow, that was like, I think it's still like I would put it in my top 10 Marvel movies. I think it's great. And then, like everyone else, I was excited for Guardians 2. And I was disappointed by it, to be honest, chat. Not that say that there isn't great stuff in the movie. I felt like James Gunn addressed the villain problem with Kurt Russell's ego and the connection between him and Peter Quill. I thought that was great. And then all the way back in the past, I think his mother, all that I thought was handled extraordinarily. I love Kurt Russell's ego. That was great. I love the stuff with Yondu too. I wanted more of it, honestly. But there was the thing about the movie was, and it's funny. It's similar to the situation with Thor: Love and Thunder, where you had a lot of people for Thor: Love and Thunder that just did not like the humor in that movie. They really disliked it. They thought it was focused too much on the jokes. And I kind of feel that way about Guardians. Maybe to not such a negative extent as some people feel about Thor: Love and Thunder, where they think that's like one of the worst Marvel movies of all time. I don't know. There's so much of the humor, like I thought a lot of stuff they did with Rocket I didn't care for. I thought he was just really just mean. And I know that James Gunn has always kind of had a mean-spiritedness to his films, and that's worked a lot of times. Look at Suicide Squad. I think he's gotten better at it. Even that with the general humor. But in that movie, like Rocket wasn't working for me at all. There was the whole subplot with Taserface. And I was just everyone, like the whole running gag of your name is Taserface. Like I did not find that funny. I found that grating, honestly. Like, oh my God, really? I was like, come on, can we move past this? And I love Baby Groot was, really cute, of course. But it was a mixed bag of a movie. I was disappointed. And but after that, I liked how the Guardians were used in Infinity War. I love that they paired him with Thor. I thought that was great. I love the dynamic between Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pratt. I love the chemistry there. And then having Thor go off his little adventure with Rocket and Groot. It was wonderful. And then having Rocket, and I really started like Rocket was great in Infinity War. They kind of addressed the problems where he wasn't so mean in that movie. And I know he was hurting. His character's been gone through a lot of trauma. But I was like, yeah, I just wasn't jiving with it in 2. But I thought he was great in Infinity War. And I love that he's the only surviving Guardian member in Endgame. He's like, but he's a little calmer now. And I like that he worked with the Avengers. I thought that was really nice. Like, he is an Avenger in Endgame. I love that. And then that brings us to the holiday special, and then of course we had the whole kerfuffle with, James Gunn being fired from Disney, and then they brought in working with DC, and then they brought him back, and now James Gunn is, he directed this, the Guardians 3, and before they did the holiday special, which brings us to here, this review. And for those who don't know, the special, follows the Guardians of the Galaxy as they celebrate or try to celebrate, Christmas and search for a present for Peter Quill, who is depressed because of the death of Gamora in the previous Avengers movies. And this, I think, just continues the success of these Marvel specials. We previously had Werewolf by Night, which I thought was great, and I had my misgivings about that one, but I was very pleasantly surprised. One of my favorite things about Phase 4. And this one, again, it's a nice, pleasant surprise. I think this is a big improvement over Guardians 2, and I think because it's more focused. And we're also focusing on members of the team that didn't really get the necessary attention that I felt like they deserve, The one thing I wanted to address, though, because I think a lot of people say, like, oh, because I keep hearing this over and over and over again. They're saying this is a parody of the Star Wars holiday special, and I don't think that's exactly true. I don't view it as much as a parody. It's more as it's just Gunn's own take on the idea of a Christmas or holiday special just featuring characters he's intimately knowledgeable about. I always viewed it as more as is it a wink and a nod to the Star Wars holiday special? Sure, but it's not a variety show. Though it includes like 2 musical numbers, both of which I think are good, but they make sense of the plot, overall. But it has this kind of thorough line. It has a narrative. It has a cohesive and straightforward narrative. And that's why I feel like it succeeds, why it's as good as it is. Yes, you see a lot of returning faces from Guardians of the Galaxy, 1 and 2. But what I like about this special so much, which is no more than like 40 minutes. I think it might be less than 40 minutes, 35 minutes, maybe slightly over. But it's really about Mantis and Drax. And it's, it's focused on their dynamic and the relationship while trying to help, Peter, who, they honestly love and care about and they view as family. It has a warmth and a wholesomeness that a lot of people attribute to like the best Christmas specials or the best Christmas, movies, the family-oriented ones. It has it at its core, and that's why it does so well. Yeah, at the same time, it's very funny. And there are a number of comedic sequences I really enjoy, especially between, Palm Clementif. Is that how you say her name? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name, but she's the actress that plays Mantis. Palm Clementif and obviously Dave Bautista and Kevin Bacon. Introducing, as they famously say in the trailer, introducing Kevin Bacon for the first time. In the original, in Guardians 2, they introduced Mantis, but I feel like they didn't do a lot with her. And, they have her in Infinity War, and they have her Endgame. But again, I don't feel like she gets a lot to this. Finally, she's kind of standing on her own 2 feet. This is very much her special. It's about her. Yes, Drax is along for the ride. They have that great, dynamic with each other. It's really amusing. It's really cute. But it's very much her. She comes into her own in this movie, and she's great. And we see her comedic chops. Even though she's dumb. She's dumb. Both her and Drax, listen, it's not like, oh, they don't understand human customs. No, they're dumb. But they have a they're charmingly stupid. I think that's what I've said. I think that's what how I've spoken about the 2 of them in this special. They're charmingly stupid, and she means well, and she does have love on her heart, and there's something to do between her and Peter that I really like. I was like, ooh, I hope this comes into play again in Guardians 3, which I'm sure it will. But I thought it was really, really cool. And just some other things that, about the special itself that I thought were interesting. They have these animated segments that kind of like bookend the entire special, and it felt to me like heavy metal or like rotoscoped animation. I guess in more recent stuff, it's like kind of like something like Undone or, the more like cult, rotoscope animation. Look at something like Scanner Darkly or like the Lord of the Rings movies back in the 70s. I kind of had that look to it. It's like, oh, I can see why James Gunn, he kind of misses it. We don't really see that animation style. It's like only pops up every once in a while. It was like another movie that came out like a couple years ago or last year where it had that rotoscope animation. I thought, this is kind of interesting. And they have that in the beginning where it's kind of like a flashback. And we see Yondu. We see Michael Rooker return as Yondu, which I really, really liked. I thought that was Night, Yondu playing the Grinch, if you will. The other thing about this, the fact that these specials are so short, I feel like, they feel it's adding to the quality. They feel like these, as I said during my review, like these one-off comics. They're focused and there isn't any filler. It's just like, this is just one contained story. We're putting so much depth into this, so much characterization, and you don't need to rely so much on like the 12, issue saga of whatever. It's just like, no, this is kind of like a one-off kind of thing. It's like, yeah, you probably would have to have seen the previous Guardians movies and some of the Avengers films, sure. But it just, the fact that's like, listen, we're going to put all of our best stuff right here in a nice packed 35 minutes, and it just doesn't feel like they're wasting your time. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing with Werewolf by Night, where I'm like, there's not a single frame where I felt like they were wasting my time, and it's the same here. And I hope that they continue on with this in the future. I feel like they are. I mean, both Werewolf by Night and Guardians of the Galaxy, they seem to be critically well received. People are talking about them. I guess I imagine they're performing big numbers for Disney Plus. And so I hope in the future that, Disney kind of looks at this and goes like, all right, well, maybe we don't necessarily always have to do a however long many episode TV series for a character or even another movie. It's just like, maybe we could do these in between things. And it's like, hey, we really kind of get certain filmmakers in there who ordinarily wouldn't want to commit to something so long and such a huge investment. Like, hey, just do this 35-minute, 40-minute. And they're like, oh, okay. I think that'd be really cool. And then you can get in characters you're kind of concerned about either giving a show or giving a full-length movie, and just like, hey, let's do it as a test. And then you can get more experimental. You can get weird, Chad. That kind of comes down to my overall thoughts. This special, much like Werewolf by Night, is a success for Marvel in terms of their live action content. I want them to continue playing around with this, and I'm not saying like they all need to be comedic, but they can be weird, they can be wacky, they can be serious. Lean into the best aspects of these characters and change what you need to change in order to make them work. But just have fun with them. Have fun with them. And James Gunn, I feel like a lot of people who are involved in this, they were having a lot of fun. They produced something that was funny and heartfelt. And so I really like this. So for me, I would give this is a nice, solid, full price, chat. Much like Werewolf by Night. So I recommend it. It's a quick watch, chat. It'll take up 40 minutes of your time. You'll be good. You can watch it now, watch it at Christmas time. Very entertaining, chat. But that's how I feel about the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. I found it really cool. What about you guys? How do you feel about it? Let me know. I'm very curious.